And another example is in Vancouver. I was in a store where a lady comes out of a taxi and she was shopping. I'd noticed her before, but I talked to her a little bit before she's about to leave, and this white woman who'd been living there all her life had tried to commit suicide, she told me, and it didn't work, you know, and so she was left with some brain damage. But as I was talking to her and just hearing her with, you know, more advanced listening skills that somebody can develop when they care instead of just doing it for a job by having too many patients, is she said, "Wow, are you a doctor? Like, where do you work? I'd like to see you again." And this was an incredibly short conversation, but she picked up my caring and my ability to really hear her story in a short conversation and understand it and relate to it, and then say things that for her were incredibly rewarding and fulfilling and empowering to hear in the life that she will now have to continue, you know, as a person who still probably wants to die, but with more pain and disabilities to be dealing with. So this is me applying a lot of the mental health first aid skills that I learned, some in courses, but mostly in my own studies of the human mind, just my own curiosities and interests. Now, this lady that came with me on the bicycle is, I allowed her to notice that I noticed her when she already walked away from where she was sitting. That was, she thought, hidden enough that I wouldn't see her, but I could show her the picture later of her not knowing I knew she was there. And I knew she was likely like this from the nonverbal communication from before. Now, why do I get into attempts at social connection like this? And the answer to that is there's a very, as a sentient and sapient creature who suffers from species alienation because the norm suffers from Homo sapien domestication, is I'm still a person with very complex series of feelings and thoughts, and I know sometimes I make a choice that is the lesser of two evils because I'm also coping with being a creature who, you know, needs to get some social needs met, or still needs to go out and film this video of mental illness. And it was kind of, I knew I'd get some fresh stories on it with this lady. And now I decided to leave her because when I saw her, she kind of pointed that she was going down, but she didn't come to me right away. So I kind of walked away from the bench, waited a bit to see if she was down the hallway where the bench was. In the observations, if she had gotten close enough to the bench, she would have seen me down this hallway towards the bicycles. Waited at the bicycles for a bit, then unlocked the bicycles, both of them, but hers is still locked, and eventually just left. Now, when I left, I still looked back many times, and she never went to the bicycle. So I knew for her, she was continuing the pattern, even though she'd been caught, but not as much caught as she thought she was. I mean, she was actually more caught than she thought she was when I show her that picture. She is not going to stop being who she is. She feels good about manipulating others because probably they wouldn't understand her anyways, or she might think I was lucky that she said that I said yes. She was lucky. I was lucky that she said yes to go riding a bicycle with me. I'm not sure exactly all the different patterns where people justify this kind of disrespect, and I allow it. And I allow it because, well, even a negative can be turned into a positive, such as talking about this, that this is a common pattern. And even the lady here, that after a year in Asia, where there's a few women I could have loved and I loved, there's only this lady recently that has a boyfriend that I've allowed myself to fall in love with. And her picture on my computer just makes me smile all the time, even though I might never see her again, or she might never become my girlfriend. I still know that there's ways that she's using me, that she used me because she kind of feels good about being with me and how I make her feel. But she won't leave her boyfriend. So she was kind of, you know, a little bit of getting her cake and eating it too. But there's also patterns of her past she's told me about that makes me understand this process for her a bit more. But also, I know this, right? I'm being used a little bit, but I am, as I said, in need of some social connections. And she is the nicer of all the Asians I've met, even though she doesn't know to what point I realized that, in a way, if we were in a conversation, she'd have to admit, I think, yes, I think that does qualify that I've been using you, Martin. I'm sorry. I do care about you and I do like you. But in a way, you know, I can understand why she's making the choices to, even when I ask her to remove herself from a place where we're both connecting so that it would be a clear message that I never have a chance with her, she's still not doing that, you know. And in a way, she doesn't want to lose me, but she's never going to have me. She only has me in her ways, and she knows I get some things out of it, but not what I want. So in a way, I'm being used, but it's a use that I appreciate right now because I'm getting quite a lot of smiles and happiness just from knowing that there's a girl I'll never have that I'm in love with. And I just want to keep loving her because it feels good, and I need those feelings to survive. Now, this is me managing myself the best I can because there's no support system or counselors that would not end up telling me ridiculous things like, have you tried lowering your standards or being more like other people? Or, you know, trying to reframe it in ways that are inhuman, that for them thinks they've made progress with me if I did it, but for me it's inhuman. You know, it's less sentience and sapience that's being used. You know, as I allow them to say these things and collect the big salaries, it's pretty sad for me, and I just eventually want to walk away, right?